Ladies and gentlemen, it is the jaw-jacking, back-cracking, God created all men equal and then he made me the sequel, the mocha-skinned manimal himself, Raju. And did you guys hear about that new rumor that the sequel trilogy, the Star Wars sequel trilogy, is going to get retconned? You know, the same rumor you've been hearing for the past 10 years? Just like how Kathleen Kennedy was going to get fired from the same grifter channels that hate Star Wars no matter what? Yeah, man. I'm so sick of hearing that shit. We've been hearing for years. Oh, once they're going to fire KK and Filoni and Favreau are going to take charge and they're going to retcon the sequels. Oh, The Last Jedi was so divisive, they're going to retcon that. No, they're not. They're not going to retcon it now. They're never going to retcon it. Unless Disney sells the Star Wars rights to somebody else, like Apple or whatever, Amazon. Only then would they be in a chance that that shit would get retconned or redone. Other than that, no. It's the same rumor, stupid rumor we've been hearing from these grifter channels for years. And not even the grifter channels. The other channels use it as clickbait too. And here's the thing. I don't use anything as clickbait. I don't even promote my stuff. On my social media, I just promote my wrestling. That's it. Because the things I say, they're not popular. Nobody wants to hear what I have to say because I speak my mind. I don't cater to either side of the fan base. I make fun of both. I can't stand either. I talk shit about them. I talk shit about things I don't like, and I praise things I do like. And I go hard in the paint, man. I'm very rough around the edges and outspoken, and a lot of people don't like that. So I don't use anything for clickbait. I just speak my mind and I rant. I had somebody recently get mad at me. They were, I'm done listening to this because I called out the girl bosses. I called out the girl boss energy in the Mall series. I felt like all the females were one note, and I said a bunch of other stuff, and he was like, "No, I'm so sick of hearing this shit." Whatever. I'm like, it is what it is. You don't have to listen to me, and that's fine. You don't have to agree with me, but I'm going to speak my mind, and if it smells like walks like a duck, smells like a duck, looks like a duck, whatever, it's a damn duck. And maybe it's PTSD, maybe it's a knee-jerk reaction, but when I see things like how I saw them in Mall, I'm going to call it out, and it seems like one-note female characters again, and but it's not even just that. I don't like the sequel trilogy, right? I don't think it's going to get retconned, but I don't like it, and I've spoken out about it, and I speak my mind about it, and I don't do anything for clickbait because I feel like it would just be a hassle. Because most people aren't going to agree with what I have to say or with what I say, and they don't want to hear it. It's either you really hate all this stuff or you really love all this stuff, and you can't be in the middle. And if you don't like one thing, you have the moral, I stand on my pedestal crowd because they think they're fighting all the injustices in the world. You have that crowd. They love to criticize you. They love to call you a racist, sexist, whatever. And if you do like something, you have the other side calling you a shill, saying how you suck, and this, that, and the other. When you have so many of these channels, they just hate Star Wars, right? It's come to that point to where you can't even praise good things. I used to watch this guy, Script Trooper, and I enjoyed his videos, but recently, even the Mall series, which I gave very high praise to, he just nitpicks, slams it, says it's stupid, he does this weird fake laugh, and then, like, it's just nonsense, the stuff he talks about. And then even like Dave Filoni had said something really cool about Darth Vader, and he shit all over that. It's like, bro, you're exposed yourself. You're just a hater. Now you really are a hater. There's nothing about Star Wars that you can give good credit to, or you even try to, even if it is good. So it's like, to me, you lose all credibility. And he'll have his followers because people enjoy that stuff. People like to either be very positive or they want to be very negative. I'm in between. If I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. And I'm going to tell you why. And then I'm going to tell you how I just think this is bullshit. This rumor, it's been going around for years. They're not going to retcon the sequel trilogy. Do I think they should? Of course. But even if they did, what are you going to do? You already lost the opportunity to have Carrie Harrison and Mark Hamill on screen together, right? You've lost that magic. You squandered that moment because you had a bunch of asshats putting together the sequel trilogy. And the sequel trilogy, I think, is terrible. And I know it has a decent amount of fans. It does not have the amount of fans that Disney and Lucasfilm want it to, no matter how hard they try to tell you, and also use the media to tell you. And the media will literally criticize, and that fan base will criticize anyone that has constructive criticism for Star Wars, and they will lump you in a category. And you see it all the time, right? They're always taking pot shots. Well, it was the fanboys didn't like this, and it's the toxic fans, and they spoke out loud against this. It's like, no. Sometimes things aren't good, and when you sit there and you triple down on it, like they've done with these movies, or The Acolyte and things like that, it's not good. And I mean with the media and that side of the fan base. Obviously, The Acolyte got canceled, and it should have, right? That's a whole different conversation. But going back to what I was saying, I know some people would want the OT trilogy characters to be recast, but it's not the same. There's a certain magic you have with the original actors, and you can't get that anymore. And that's a shame. It's a shame that it's done. You can't fix that. And sure, you could do animated, you could do some AI, maybe some CG, but it's still not going to feel real and authentic. Even if you replace those characters with different actors, it's still not the same because the magic isn't there. There was a certain chemistry with those actors, and they've been doing it for years. It's not like you're recasting Batman or Superman. They tell different iterations of those characters, not a continuous storyline. It was weird when they recast Val Kilmer and George Clooney, and they were supposed to be in the same timeline, I believe, as the Michael Keaton Batman. It was just weird. So a lot of people are screaming for that, like, oh, cast Sebastian Stan as Luke. It's not the same, guys. Sure, you could put that on film, but it's not the same. And I don't think people understand that. And so you already lost that. So, and what else you can do? Like I said, you can do CG, you're going to do animated. I'm sure the stories would be fine. Maybe. Depends on what they did. But you've lost that. Instead, you chose to trash your original characters just to prop up Rey, who never earned anything. She was good from beginning to end. And I like The Force Awakens. I loved it. When it first came out, I saw it a million times. I agreed with everyone that it was just a retread of A New Hope. I knew it was a safe movie, but I would defend Rey. I would sit there and say, oh no, man, I'm willing to bet she's a former pupil of Luke Skywalker. She's learned these things. They probably erased her memory, and that's why she knows how to use these powers. There's no way she's going to know how to use all these Jedi mind tricks just like that. That's something you have to train for, and obviously she's trained. That wasn't the case. You know, Last Jedi completely ignored everything that The Force Awakens did, and then The Rise of Skywalker completely ignored everything that The Last Jedi did. It was just a clusterfuck. And people, like I said, there are fans of the sequel characters, but the majority of the fan base, even normies, they don't like, or they just don't care about the sequel or its characters. The overall consensus for those movies is that they're not good. They're not well done. There was that recent poll that showed which Star Wars movies last year in 2025, I believe it was on May 4th, were watched the most, and the sequels didn't even make the top 10. Merch sales, right? Merch sales are a huge thing. Well, actually, we'll do the merch sales in a minute. Everyone always likes to uses the excuse that the movies made, each one made $1 billion. Each movie had diminishing returns. So that means less and less people were doing repeat viewings or going to the theater to watch your movie because they were not fans of what you were doing. You say what you want about The Last Jedi, but it split the fan base, right? Split the fan base, and I don't even think that's a good movie. So even though the sequels aren't the most beloved, another reason why there's, to tell you this, it's not me just blowing smoke. There's actual facts. Look at the merch. The merch that sells the most, at least the era, it's still the original trilogy. And then from anything new from Disney, it's been That's my dog, sorry. It's been The Mandalorian and Grogu. That's it. And the top selling character is Darth Vader. Nothing, not much from the prequels, not much from the sequels. And it's funny how, the recency bias with the prequels, people try to act like those movies were just so beloved and only the critics got down on it. But no, those movies split the fan base as well. I was there. I lived that. I was on the forums watching people dog each other for either liking it or not liking it. Dogging George Lucas, wondering what the hell happened. Where'd the magic go? So that was a real thing. And you have the same thing with people that like the sequels. They try to act like they're these masterpieces of, movies, of a trilogy. And man, if you think those movies are a masterpiece, you are an idiot. And I know it's very blunt to say, but man, not even close. There's nothing masterpiece about any of those movies. And that's the thing too. You are continuing to shove Rey. Well, not now, they're not. But they were, at the one Star Wars celebration. They want Rey to be the future. Rey's not the future. Rey's not even the present. And they would say like, well, you know what? Wait 10 years. Those 10-year-olds that grew up watching it, once they're 20 or older, they're really going to bring around the resurgence of the sequels. It's been over 10 years and that's not happened. That the movies, that trilogy did not resonate with fans like they wanted it to. And that's just how it is. Merch sales, right? I'm going back to that. Force Awakens did well, but I believe it started to tucker out at the end and kind of tanked. And then instead of having a Last Jedi line or even like a Solo line, they didn't, because they didn't want to put their faith in that. And so they had it part of the Force Link line. And those merch sales weren't even that good either. The stuff that sells the most is, like I said, it's the OT trilogy, Darth Vader or Mando and Grogu. There's a very popular Star Wars toy line. There's the Black Series, and I believe it's either the Legacy. I think it's the Legacy series, might be the Vintage Collection. But they have not made a sequel character figure in years. It's been years since they made one of those figures. They don't sell. And that's part of the proof that these movies have not resonated like you wanted them to. And they don't. That would be a good reason to retcon the sequels, but it's not going to happen because the Access Media, who dogs fans that, has any type of criticism for those movies, they would throw a fit. The I love everything, I stand on a pedestal, I'm morally just crowd that thinks they're in the right constantly because of whatever stupid thing they're tacking on this time, they would throw a fit. And then you would have the actual chuds and the grifters rubbing that all in everybody's faces, and you would never hear the end of it. So I think you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And that sucks. That really sucks. But I mean, you kind of did it to yourselves. I don't know what you were thinking with those movies. I mean, you could still fix Rey. Say you retcon the movies and you had Rey be a pupil of Luke Skywalker, and then she returns to help him, and Luke passes the torch. He passes it instead of them just taking the torch and putting it in a water bucket and, extinguishing it. Because that feels like that's what they did. They gave, I felt like they really just disrespected the characters that helped create your franchise and keep it afloat for the last 40 years. That's just very, very weird to me that that's what they did. And then you just kind of were like, yeah, and people will forget about these guys. Look at Galaxy's Edge. They're pulling back on the sequel stuff, and they're putting the OT characters in there as well as John Williams' score. That's important because that resonates with people more than anything. Look at on TV shows when people do a Star Wars pop culture reference, right? Or just random people. It's usually, they mention Han, Luke, Leia, Vader, Chewie, Yoda. They mention mostly original trilogy characters. And that's just kind of, that's like a thing. It's people like that. They relate to those. They relate to the OT more than you would think. Like I said, when you watch TV and someone's dropping a Star Wars reference, they're not talking about Rey. Hell, they're probably not even talking about the prequels unless they talk Jar Jar. And that's another thing too. People like to say, well, people are always saying somehow Palpatine returned, so it obviously, made a good lasting impression. saying people making fun of and somehow Palpatine returned, that's making fun of your shitty dialogue. Before the meme culture, the prequels were frowned upon. People were like, I'm not a fan of that. And then when the meme culture came out, people were making fun of the lines, I don't like sin for this reason, things like that, or no, unlimited power. They would talk about that as in they were making fun of it, right? Same thing, somehow Palpatine returned. They make fun of that, or they're making fun of John Boyega screaming, Ray! Ray! For like 3 whole fucking movies. That's ridiculous. It's like when people quote The Room with Tommy Wiseau. Oh, hey, Mark, that's a terrible movie. But people still quote it because it's cheesy and they like to quote it. You know, it's not anything epic. And Star Wars should be epic. And unfortunately, that hasn't been the case in quite some time. And so when you get like that silliness, somehow Palpatine returned, people are going to clown on it, you know. And they might even, what's it called? They might even talk about it a lot, but they're making fun of it. There's a big difference there, and they're not giving it praise. People quote Luke, I am your father, because that's epic, you know? No one's like, yeah, that was dumb. I mean, you might have a few people say that, but it was epic, and it's remembered for being epic, not corny. Somehow Palpatine returned, and the whole, what's it called? Good Lord. The prequel dialogue, that's all, like, that's corny. It's corny stuff. So people like to talk about that and laugh about it and make fun of it. So the sequels, they haven't resonated. They haven't aged well. As no matter how much stuff people are going to tell you, they haven't. And it's not just me saying this. The proof is there. Yeah, each one made $1 billion. Unless you count Rise of Skywalker, because there's a rumor that cost almost like over $900 million. And you factor that in with the marketing, there's no way that movie made a profit. Because of all the reshoots and stuff, I guess, apparently. But that just might be a rumor. Who knows? But I know this rumor, this is just a rumor. This stuff of them retconning the sequels, it's not happening. It's not happening, you know. It's not gonna happen. Because what are they gonna do with that? You retcon the sequels, and where do you go? You do a multiverse? Then you're just confusing your fans even more. Marvel confuses the hell out of them now with that stuff. Could you imagine Star Wars, which has never done it, starts to do that? You know, what are you going to do? Change it with the World Between Worlds? And then what? You know, you're going to split the brand? It's not going to work that way. And it's unfortunate, but that time has passed us. And obviously there's the rumor of the Rey movie and the Rey trilogy and all this stuff, which I think is a terrible idea. But you know, it is what it is. I don't know. It's a sad state that Star Wars is in. The fan base is very divided. I thought they should have done way more with Han, Luke, and Leia, especially Luke. He's a staple of that franchise, and you know, people connect with him, you know, through their childhood or as inspiration, and then you just kick them off to the side. And it's so depressing. It's depressing what Star Wars has become. You know, you do have your fans out there that no matter what Star Wars does, or, you know, they swallow it all and this is the best. Oh, I can't wait for the next one. This is the best tasting whatever. And it's bad. But yeah, man, I mean, guys, girls, whoever's listening, do you guys think the sequels are going to get retconned? Or like me, do you think that's just another wild BS rumor? So sound off in the comments whether you like the movies, whether you don't like the movies. I want to know if you think they're going to get retconned. I don't think they are. I think it's a wrap. You know what I mean? That's what we got. If they want to do well, you move far away from that and you tell a whole different story. And who knows if that's going to happen, because I'm willing to bet Rey shows up in Starfighter. And I think that'd be a really big mistake, because people are not feeling that character like Disney Lucasfilm wants them to. So, and the proof is in the pudding, man. I'm sorry. It's just, it is. And it's a shame that this franchise has come to this. So, but yeah, what do you guys think? You think it's a crazy rumor? You think it's actually going to happen? I know Josh from Dead or Nerds just said, they're not going to retcon it, but they're going to bring back the Skywalkers, and they're going to make the Skywalkers a focal point, the actual real bloodline Skywalkers. They're going to make them a focal point, but that could also just be nonsense as well. So we'll see. All right, this has been the mocha-skinned manimal Rohit Raju. Thanks for listening. Take care.